fuck? Yeah, Peacemaker's back, baby!
Why is that busboy staring at you?
Think that's my friend Chase's younger brother. His mental issues.
Return to the Mac. Get up what it is, what it does, what it is, what it isn't. Looking for a better way to get up out of bed instead of getting on the internet and checking a new hit. Me get up.
What are you doing?
If I keep changing my facial expressions, you won't be able to recognize me in a lineup. I'm your best friend.
No, you're not. Don't worry. I'm not giving this guy anything.
Maybe you should just give him a little.
Give it all you got!
What? No. For a minute, I was kind of PO'd. Like, you didn't care about the fact that I was in, agonizing pain.
Stop with this pinky.
What? My pinky? Why me again? But it's worth it, for being a more evolved human being, so thank you.
It just seems like under the surface you're kind of angry about it.
I'm not.
Seems like you are.
I'm not at all. If someone doesn't have their pinky toe, they fall over. It's the most important toe on the human body.
I don't think that's true.
What is? I read it on the internet. You think that gives me pleasure?
No.
Well, it does.
When we go back, this is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. And we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us.
Why are you limping? Snowboarding accident, totally unrelated in any way to Vigilante. I don't even know who Vigilante is.
Y'all can't stop me. Go hard like I got an 808 in my heartbeat. And I'm eating at the beat like it gave a little speed to a great white shark on shark. We raw. Wanna go
Vigilante, you're with me.
Hey, what was Rochambeau for?
Nothing.
Caesar, make you a believer now. I never ever did it for a throne.
Your dad is a racist whack job. Your dad left your mom for another dude.
Hey.
He did?
Yeah, and they're deeply in love.
Who's gonna laugh at you for falling over because you don't have a toe?
Which one of you dumb sister fucking tiki torch carrying slops from the Goonies looking pieces of shit wants to go next?
This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us.
Try introspection on that, motherfucker.
Like the ceiling can't hold us.
Sorry.
Hey, everyone, look! Which one's me and which one's Eagly?
So you're compassionate about tape, but not brutally murdering people.
Yes. We're born killers. What separates us from other killers is we only kill bad people. Usually.
No shit! Ah! It was a secure phone!
You can't apologize enough.
That's creepy.
Do I sound like a fucking maniac?
Dude, we're off it.
We are?
No.
No.
Eagly, take the helmet.
Eagly, take the helmet. I'm getting this weird feeling that you're angry.
Then we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited. We are having our community stream, and I'm bringing in voices. We're going to talk all about, well, Batman. I guess that should have been a Batman intro, but right now I'm so obsessed with Peacemaker, I can't help it. Like, I absolutely love it, but no spoilers because I got spoiled on the final episode, and I'm still never going to forgive people. So let's actually get to the subject. Let's introduce everyone instead of me going off about Peacemaker. First off, Kenneth Dowling, how are ya?
I am doing wonderful. It's great to be back on the show. Right, MVP. Yeah, you're right. But right direction. Right. It's great to be back on your channel, Nerdette. I hope you've been very well. It's great to see everyone. And I have not seen Peacemaker yet. I have seen The Suicide Squad, and it's pretty good. It wasn't bad, I don't think. Some cuts here and there, some scenes they could have cut out, but for the most part, I thought it was an entertaining film. So I want to get into Peacemaker when I have the time.
You have to. You have homework now, just so you know.
I got homework.
Max's channel, you guys, Max and Comics and all right. Max and Comics and Finance channel are in the description, so you guys can check them. I think something's going on, Carrie. Are you okay? Okay.
I believe Carrie's losing signal.
Okay. So, anyways, Max, how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. This was the first time on your channel, Tristan, and we've both, I think, seen each other through different YouTube videos. And like I said, I've seen you through Drew and Comics Elite and all kinds of different live streams. So it's fun to be on here with people who are like-minded and just want to talk comics. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I have a channel of my own. I started about 6 months ago and just been covering anything that I can that seems interesting, whether that's comic books or pop culture. And through that, I've been meeting some really cool people like Kenneth over here and Tristan herself. And then these two guys, which I haven't met yet, but I'm looking forward to talking with them tonight. So that's it.
Speaking of which, Comics and Finance, we have done a video together once before, but tell everybody about your channel.
It started, almost 2 years ago. It went through several different names, and it's really just me looking at comics from a more financial point of view, like what's going on with the money, to see why it is that I just sort of fell out of a lot of the stuff besides a couple Bat books.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk about it because I'm always looking at your videos like, all right, we got the breakdown here. I can kind of do a breakdown of the sales analysis and stuff, but he takes it to a whole new level, and I love it. Dan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. So, all right, for the stream and those people who don't know me, my name's Dan. I'm the host of my YouTube channel, Dan on Tasmedia. I'm fairly new to YouTube, so I don't have that many videos, but I have previously done a stream with Tristan before. It was in I believe it was Diversity in Comics?
Wait.
Huh?
Say that one more time.
The stream we did together before, was it Diversity in Comics?
About yes. Yeah. I was like the YouTuber? I was confused for a minute. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah. Ari, who currently lost signal, we're friends on Twitter, so I'm already familiar with her. So, it'll be definitely is going to be an interesting stream. I think you chose a really good subject, and I'm excited to share my thoughts.
Awesome. I'm excited too. I feel bad. Carrie lost power. She emailed me and she lost power. So poor Carrie. But we're gonna talk about there's been a lot, and I did some numbers videos last week. And basically what it looks like is Batman is dominating. Batman is dominating the DC market. And my biggest issue with it when I went, because I looked at some of the older numbers, right? Hush is really when, Batman started dominating. But if you look at some of the older numbers, I don't think this is a Batman issue as more of an issue of the surrounding titles not being propped up, not having good creative teams. Like right now, I love the video that Comics and Finance did because it was a video about piracy, right? The most pirated title. And we can look at the numbers and we can see that Batman is dominating. But when you go over and you look at which ones are being pirated, it's Action Comics, it's Flash, it's these titles that are phenomenal that need more sunlight on them, but they're spending their money on Batman. So how do you prop up those other titles but still keep Batman up there? That's my main question, because some of those books are really good. Really good. Like, they just canceled Suicide Squad. What the fuck were they thinking? That book was so good. But on the other titles like Nubia and the Amazons, you have a creative team that is, in my opinion, and of course everything's subjective, not very good. And it should be. Nubia is coming back and making this grand entrance, and unfortunately she's being kind of like placated. And I think at this point you need to really look at the surrounding details. Not look at Batman as being a bad thing that it's up front, but look at everything around it and see how to prop those up. What do you think, Max?
I think one of the things that you had mentioned was, these lesser titles that don't get as much praise. And I think what would help them is because, like, you look at Wolverine. I've got the book back here, right here. His first series was Frank Miller, so you have a top-notch writer and artist on the book for his first series ever. So, like, we look at Yara Flor, and a lot of people really enjoyed her. I didn't, I didn't mind her at all, and I think she had a place in the DC universe. But they canceled her comic after only 7 issues.
7 fucking issues. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
still upset about that.
I agree. It didn't give her any time to cultivate herself as a character. It didn't give the writers any time, but they didn't put a all-star team on her, which I think they should have done, which probably would have boosted the sales a bit more if they want to promote these titles. But like you said, Tristan, like the Action Comics is praised every single week. I've got friends who say, if you're not reading Action and you're a Superman fan, you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Yes.
And so to not see that on the top 50 list or top, 100 list or whatever of DC titles is upsetting. And I think you have a great outlook on that, because some people would say, oh, well, it just means that Batman is dominating. But it's also it's twofold. Why is Batman dominating? It's because a lot of these other books aren't being looked at. Because I don't know what do you guys think? Do you think it is the characters, or do you think it's the writers and artists? Do we think that it's like a talent issue? I don't know.
Well, you said, hold on one second. I just want to add some, because you said there wasn't a good creative team on Yara's book. But I would argue that the art, at least the art, a lot of people maybe don't necessarily like the writing, but the art from Joelle Jones is top tier.
Absolutely.
True.
It is phenomenal. And that book, in my opinion, I know a lot of people maybe didn't connect with her, but it was a different, it's obviously a Wonder Woman character, but it was a different one than we've ever seen. She was sassy. She was fun. She was different. Isn't an issue of Wonder Woman never sells great. But you also have to give a character an actual chance. And when you cut him off at the legs, that character cannot excel. The only thing I can think of when it comes to Yara being canceled, Teen Titans and Suicide Squad is Dark Crisis.
I agree. I agree with you 100% in that.
What about you, Comics and Finance? You do those. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I was just saying, I think a lot of it also has to do with a lack of promotion, because like after Wonder Girl #1, like I barely saw any sort of promotion for Yara Flor and her comic. Like it was like non-existent. Compare that to like the promotion you see for Detective Comics or like the regular Batman and title. It's like it really is like just a almost non-existent. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you do the Hominus. I wanted to welcome you. I'm sorry. How are you,
thank
Hominus?
You. Great. Thanks for the invitation, and it's good to be here. It's great. Thank you very much.
No problem whatsoever. But I wanted to ask comics and finance because you look so much deeper into the numbers than I necessarily do. Do you think it's an issue necessarily of Batman skyrocketing, or you've talked a lot about the omnibuses, the whales, and what's keeping a lot of afloat. But when we talk about floppies specifically, what do you think the issue is with people buying Batman as comparatively to the surrounding titles?
Well, I think it comes down to pricing. I mean,
lot of
I think
it,
we all need to. I think we all know it. It's in the past, like back in the 80s, Marvel was running roughshod on DC, but they didn't explode until the 90s.
Yes.
But what's really surprising is if you look at the Comic-Con numbers, Batman and Superman were still doing what they've always done. If you go back to the 1950s, Batman and Superman were doing what they'd always done. They were the two tentpoles of DC for 60, 70 years. Wonder Woman was the third member of the Trinity, not because she outsold Flash, not because she outsold Green Lantern, but because Wonder Woman was the most consistent character outside of those two. When things got bad, Flash would need to get canceled because people wouldn't buy it. Green Lantern would need to get canceled because people wouldn't buy it. Wonder Woman could endure the same way that Batman and Superman could. So that's why she's in the Trinity. Aquaman, facts, Aquaman cannot hold an ongoing comic without a superstar team. And even then people start to fade off. And they used to have it where those comics were all priced at a discount so that people would go into the Justice League comic and then they would go into the other characters, because otherwise it would just be Superman all day, Batman every other day, and that would be it. Now Batman has the premium pricing, and I'm trying to do a video on elasticity because they jacked up the price from $2.99 to $3.99 when like Tynion was at $2.99. Then Tomasi came on at $3.99, but Tomasi had only 2,000 or 3,000 fewer average readers. And that's if you factor out the Detective Comics 1,000 and 1,027. So that meant everybody just took the dollar hit. What is that going to tell a company? Especially when they jacked up the price from $3.99 to $4.99, and they only lost if we deflate for the COVID, they really might have lost. When this all settles down, they're probably going to lose maybe another 3,000 or 4,000. When in a 3-year period, they went from $2.99 to $4.99, and you went from having 55,000 readers to like 45,000 readers, and they'll probably still be able to sell 40,000 plus when they knock it up to $5.99. Does anyone disagree with that?
Probably not. And the sad thing about it is a lot of us will still buy them. I mean, there's some stuff I trade weight for, but it's very rare. Like, most of the time, I want to read my stuff weekly. And I know there's a lot of people that do want to read it weekly and get the updates. When it comes to the stuff with, like, you talked about the piracy issue, right? Why do you think specifically, even when it comes to Flash and these titles that are doing really good, why do you think those people go to Batman to buy it instead of buying those issues? Is it just because it's a Batman issue? Everyone loves Batman.
Yes. I mean, all you guys have hit it right. You guys have hit the nail on the head, especially your point, comics and finance. And to answer your question, Nerdette, how can you like prop up the other characters and we're on Batman? Honestly, you don't need to worry about Batman, because what's that saying? And excuse my language, but this kind of shit sells itself. Batman is the kind of
I
shit.
was about to say the same thing.
It sells itself. Batman has been around for not only nearly 100 years. He stood the test of time, and there were points. There was even points where Batman was struggling, but then you had the hottest artists or the hottest writers come in. Even today, the hottest writers, the hottest artists, their dream is to write a Batman book. There's something about that character, how he's designed, that's approachable and attractive and enticing, that people want to write a Batman book, and it's pushing the market. You know,
I want to do a riddle me this.
It's not only that, but look at Batman comparatively. Like, Flash would be the only. Batman's got the Rogues Gallery, and Batman's got the family. So the characters surrounding him are. Look at Nightwing. Like, we're not even getting Green Lantern to 100, but we're getting Nightwing almost to 100 at this point. We're not getting the side characters to sell because they end up getting canceled. Like, Nightwing getting to 100 is kind of a big deal because it's so rare nowadays, right? Like, we've got Flash and Action Comics and stuff, but like, it's so rare for one of these side characters to actually make it. And Nightwing is selling really well.
He's selling, but you know, like how your boy Josh talks about how Nightwing is his favorite superhero, but he wants Nightwing to branch off a bit. Well, Nightwing is an interesting character, but still he is entangled, or he's attached to Batman, which is why one, he can survive, but two, he can't survive too much on his own because he's still attached to Batman.
Right.
But now that he can get over 100 issues, that's a good way in itself.
I would ask like a riddle me this though. When it comes to like characters that people normally underestimate that suddenly do really well, like I'm going to use Aquaman. The best performing run was with Geoff Johns writing Aquaman.
Oh yeah.
And at the same time, he was doing Green Lantern. Best performing Green Lantern, right? And one of the consistent things was when he was writing the Justice League, again, a very strong performing title, which is very difficult to do. It was an aggressive back burner of Batman, putting Batman on the back foot. When Tynion was writing Detective Comics, like that Batman had no alignment with any version that was engaging. And it was like the purpose was just like with the Justice League. Look at this other character. It's just as good. It's so much better. And then we get upset when someone doesn't have the talent and does it like in CW. But my riddle me this is, imagine if DC was run by a Martin Scarelli type. Saw someone like Geoff Johns turning Green Lantern from a title that sold like 35,000 to a title that sold 80,000 and said, oh, I should put you on a Batman book full time. What do you think would happen with that Batman book with pre-crazy Ethan Van Sciver doing the art for 4 or 5 years? What would those numbers be? Please, more or less than Green Lantern?
Well, I don't know those artists, so I do apologize. But what your point about Geoff Johns, he's one of the greatest comic book writers of all time, and he carries with him an audience that if he's writing anything, they're going to follow him. Like whether he's writing Superman or what's the word, like a lesser known character,
or he's Geiger even.
Oh, Geiger, yeah, he's going to write the shit out of that character, and that book is going to sell because he has a built-in audience due to his talent and what he is, and he can go there and he can go off and be a producer in big budget movies and carry his knowledge with him. He has a cachet that he can take with him. So, but now your point of running DC Comics, you brought up a point in the 80s, Comics and Finance. In the 80s, Jim Shooter was running Marvel, and that's how Marvel was the giant in the 80s. It was, for me, I love the decade of the 80s when it comes to comics. In my opinion, the 80s was the best decade of all time, my favorite decade, But yeah, it's basically what it is, It's who's writing the books, what talent you got to take time to build up those other characters, build them up. But then again, the best people, whether it's Scott Snyder, Tomasi, or even the Tom King, before I actually read his stuff, Tom King is the hottest writer. What did he want to do? He wanted to write Batman. They all want to write this character, man.
My question was obviously a little more pointed. It was like, if Geoff Johns spent 2 or 3 years writing an ongoing Batman book, would that perform as well or better than any of the other heroes he's done?
Oof, that's a hard question. You know what?
It would.
Probably.
I'm gonna say probably.
I mean, he did one Batman story, 3 Jokers, out of continuity, Black Label. It's still selling like hotcakes online.
That's crazy because it wasn't that good.
If it has constant,
Yeah.
I didn't like the
Bet
ending, but
600,000 for the first issue, like 200,000 for the second, 200,000 for the third,
Wow.
and then the trade is still selling stupid numbers.
well, according to the numbers, yes, it will be doing great.
Yeah, that's my thing. I'm like, you put
Yeah.
a writer on a Bat book, it's like you can just guarantee you'll sell more. That's one of the reasons I think John's deliberately avoided writing a Bat character in an ongoing, because like you put your best guy on that, and it's going to just dominate. It's going to suck all the air out of the room.
He did the Earth One books too. Those were phenomenal.
Oh
Those,
yeah.
So
I
he
love
has
Earth
written
One.
like they were very like very different, very early, but those books were still sell like crazy, right? Those are people waited so long for volume 3 and it's amazing, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not shocked that Three Jokers was selling well, but it was kind of that one for me was like, okay, we've been waiting for this, and oh, this is cool, nice. Like it was kind of like a little bit of a letdown because the hype was so big with it, but with it still selling well. If he was on Batman, it would be selling like hotcakes. There are certain people. Jeff Johns is one of them. Jeff Lemire, Ram V. I don't care what they're on at this point. I read them. Like I've gotten to a point where I follow creators. I still always buy DC, but I follow creators when they have their indies. If anything Jeff Johns is writing, there's a huge group of us that would absolutely buy it. So yeah, if he was writing Batman, it would sell like crazy. You know what? If he was writing Yara Flor, it would have sold like crazy.
Yes.
It wouldn't have mattered what the title was.
And I think that's what, like, from what I'm hearing you guys say right now, and I think the question, or what we're saying right now, is that whether you have an all-star team on Batman or not, whether it's a Batman single title or it's a Batman family title, it's most likely going to sell. Because I know Legion of Comics is in the chat. He had said earlier that Batman is Batman. He is one of the most well-known and popular characters, even for people who have never read a comic book in their life. They just know who Batman is. So Batman titles will always sell. And Comics and Finance, to have Jeff Johns on there would just make it go through the roof, even more so. But I think the question that we're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is the fact that Batman is selling so well and Bat family titles that are selling so well, is that hurting other books? And is it a bad thing for DC that Batman is selling so well and continues to sell so well? I think, and to answer that question, I think the only thing I would say is that with so many Bat titles, I think people are now having to choose whether they want all Bat titles or if they want maybe the Batman solo, detective, and then they can do their action comics and their Wonder Woman and their Flash. Because comics, like you were saying earlier, they've gone from $2.99 to $3.99 to now $4.99.
Yeah.
And then if you get a variant, we're talking $6.90, with the card stock. So you're putting more money into all your Batman titles, which is totally fine. But then based off of your income, you then might have to sacrifice the other titles. And that's what I think is worrying DC, is that, and worrying comic fans, is that they want to collect everything. But because they're mainly Batman fans, it's tough to kind of balance everything. So you guys can absolutely smash me to pieces if you disagree or whatnot. But for me, that's kind of where I think.
It's true. It's true. Like in today's video, Tristan, how many titles and how many titles was Batman in?
Probably at least 40%. At least.
Wow.
At least
from
to
solicitations.
To comics. Yeah. I was like, what, 10 titles and 8, 9 titles, and everyone else, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, was 2 or 2 titles now, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Let me get this membership message real quick, guys. It doesn't show up, so I can't put it on the screen. I don't know why it does that. Thank you, Robert. Batman and Spider-Man are the Big Two's Golden Cow
Yep.
characters.
Yes.
They are the ones that sell
Yes.
no matter who it is.
Yes.
If they drop, creators are removed. Yep. Like we
Marvel-
saw what's happening.
Yeah,
Marvel
Batman
does-
represents DC and Marvel
Yeah.
and Spider-Man. Marvel is that easy? I mean, yeah, Batman sells like crazy, and so does Spider-Man.
I think
Marvel
what needs
does
to
the
be
same
done.
thing as- Sorry.
Go ahead, Kenneth. I'm sorry.
No, I don't mean to talk over you guys. My apologies. But this thing with Batman is nothing new because Marvel does the same thing with Spider-Man. You
Yep.
think Batman does
Yeah.
5 or 10 titles? Since Spider-Man's inception, they've had Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and
Those are
Marvel team
nonstop.
up. Marvel team up.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's a Spider-Man book because it's Spider-Man
Yep.
teaming up with someone else, and that's been going on for 60 years. They do the same thing with Spider-Man.
Spider Woman, Silk,
Spider-Wo-
all the
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
Spider
Spider-Gwen.
I've
Miles
actually,
Morales.
You got Miles Morales. They do, Marvel does the same stuff.
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely.
I
I
gotta,
think
I gotta,
What? What's that?
I would have to, I had to throw I wanted to throw a yellow card on that because Marvel, the way their comics work. Now there's a difference between the merchandise and the comics. The merchandise, Spider-Man just runs roughshod over everything else. In terms of merchandise for DC, overall, in terms of merchandise, it's a weird thing. It's like Batman, Superman, and I think it's either Wonder Woman or Flash. It's weird like that. That Batman doesn't dominate the merchandise nearly as much as he dominates the comics. But the flip side is Spider-Man comics don't dominate Marvel's comic sales as much as Spider-Man dominates Marvel's merchandise.
Right.
The X-Men are crazy
Interesting.
popular. Like the
Yeah.
Avengers
Right,
and all those
but-
solo characters combined are crazy popular. With DC,
Mhm.
it's just, in terms of the comic sales, it's just Batman because Batman is the only one that has the full multimedia suite that works. With Spider-Man, you can have an amazing game with Spider-Man. With Batman, you can have an amazing game with Batman. You can have amazing TV shows with Batman where it doesn't feel like Batman's been nerfed into the ground, with the animated series. With Superman, people were saying Superman has to be nerfed into the ground to be interesting in a long-term way because you get one legit Superman story that is your Superman. Because Superman, unlike Batman, is someone
All-star.
who's trying to do right. Batman is trying to do the right thing as a bounded human person who has flaws. Superman is supposed to represent basically the perfect idea of a hero. So when you get your story, that's your perfect idea of a hero because Superman is supposed to be that perfect hero. Well, once you get that story, nothing else is going to match it.
Yeah.
And if Superman is the aspirational superhero, almost doesn't cut it. With
Yes, you're
Batman is
absolutely
just
right.
trying.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if Batman is just trying, sure, he might get it wrong here and there, but overall, he's still doing the right thing.
But
But with
that's the
Superman,
thing.
it's like All-Star Superman, that's the one. Superman
That's the
Four
thing.
Seasons, that's the
Oh,
one.
sorry,
It's
that's
hard
the
to do it
thing.
ongoing.
Oh, I apologize.
Go ahead,
That's the
Dominus.
thing with Batman. People relate to Batman because
And Superman sucks compared to Batman. Let's be real here.
yeah.
Whoa, that's a bold
Superman's the
statement.
boy
No,
scout.
as a guy who reads so many
Wow.
Batman comics, I'm actually gonna
You know,
have it again.
that's the people that
No.
sorry, that's the thing with Batman. People relate to him because he has flaws. He's human.
Mm-hmm.
He will
And he's
make
grounded.
yes. He's grounded. He will make
So
good
is
things
Spider-Man,
and
too.
he will do mistakes. And that's humanity.
Right.
Yes.
But you're
So
also
when it
able
comes
to see.
to Superman, it's like, yeah, he always will come on top. He will always succeed. People
Yeah, that-
will always listen to Superman. And that's the whole, and with Batman, it's a whole different thing.
Right.
He's a vigilante.
Let me
yeah,
get this
how
super
much
chat
of
here,
it was
guys.
How the characters are written.
Good. And I want to address commerce and finance with his questions too.
Okay,
So
one
go-
second.
go-
Let me get this super chat. It's why Dan Slott stayed on Spider-Man for so long. It took until people finally dropped off significantly for them to roll him off. I will say, to Dan Slott's credit, he was, I don't know necessarily as much about his Spider-Man stuff, but his Arkham, what was it, Living Hell? Oh my God, so good. But he's a
I don't
crazy
know
person.
about that, but
No,
don't know about
he did a story. I think I reviewed it around Halloween time because it was a horror story. It's like Arkham. No, I forget what Living Hell, I think is what it's called. Oh my god, so good. But yes, he's insane. But yeah, I totally get it, Robert. Thank you very much. Go ahead. You wanted to address
But no, with comics and finance, because I don't know, you felt I didn't answer one of your questions. With Jeff Johns, you put Jeff Johns in a Batman book. Will it sell consistently? Yes. One, because it's Batman. Two, because it's Jeff Johns. He has a cachet with him. And if he write it like consistently over a long one, let's say a year or two one, that shit will sell high. It'll be top quality because he's going to bring it to it. And with the Spider-Man, but Spider-Man, more than any other Marvel character, has multiple titles. He's the only one who can carry multiple titles. You may have 2 or 3 X-Men titles, maybe 2 Avengers titles, but any other single character in Marvel, they're going to have just one title. You don't have multiple Daredevil titles or multiple Wolverines or multiple.
I mean, they kind of do. They have Woman Without Fear now and Devil's Reign.
But
that's only 2.
Time have Wolverine and Savage Wolverine, but you're right. They did drop off pretty hard after they weren't able to keep the talent on there.
Right.
So here's the issue at hand. We all know that Batman sells. We all know that they're going to capitalize on it. Obviously, any company would. That's what they're there for, to make money. How do you prop up the other characters besides, marketing and stuff like that? My thing is, some of the creative teams on the other characters, whether it is Wonder Woman, which I've enjoyed, it's okay. A lot of the books are just okay, and that's the problem. You need to make these books so good that they start getting word of mouth, right? Like, for example, Walking Dead, when it was first introduced, sold for shit. It didn't sell. Word of mouth got that book out there. Same with Saga. That's what they need for these. Like, I feel like Action Comics may do that, and maybe Flash. But even when it comes to Aquaman the Becoming or Black Manta, nobody's out there going, these are great books. You should check this out. You should check this out. This book was so good, I had to review it right away. Nobody's doing that because they're just okay. And that's the biggest issue DC has.
Creative teams.
I agree.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I completely agree with Tristan, is like that, because that actually pretty much describes like where I'm currently at with DC Comics, is because I'm very like in and I'm out. Like I would, when Mariko Tamaki was writing Wonder Woman, I was sort of in, but I immediately dropped out once she stopped. And same thing goes for some of the other comics, like in Titans. Is like that, like when they're not really good, it seems like no one really buys them, and that's why I feel like you sort of need to do like sort of like The Walking Dead. Is like promotion is really important. Like maybe they shouldn't have canceled the Yara Flor TV series if it was going to be good. It might have boosted. It would have boosted up sales.
Yeah,
that's what manga does with anime all the time. I mean, look at Demon Slayer. That's blown up everywhere.
I think for a lot of DC fans, they are looking for the continuity that some of these comics aren't bringing to them. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm not a DC fan or not a Marvel fan. I like both very equally. I think both have beautiful universes that are good, that have like original characters and original thought processes and stuff like that. However, I know that the diehard DC fans, really, the thing that separates DC from Marvel is that continuity. And I think for Marvel,
that's an issue right now too.
Right. And that's the thing. And I think, Tristan, like you were saying, how do we get these other books to be propped up? I think, sadly enough, there may be continuity that has to be brought back, because if there's a through line through every single book, not just Fear State or not just Death of the Justice League that we're about to get or whatnot, if there's a through line through every single book and there is continuity, then then people will be wondering, what's Superman doing during this event or during this era of the books, as opposed to like no one cares about what Superman's doing right now up on Warworld because it's not tied into the through line of Fear State or Death of the Justice League or whatever is going on. So I think continuity would help. And then I think also, unfortunately, and this is just my opinion, I think there would have to be maybe a pullback on some of the Batman titles. You know, take a few of your titles that are not doing so well, pull them out, and then now that leaves some more spots for people to then, you know, instead of paying, you know, an extra $5 for that variant cover or that Batman issue, now you're saving that $5 to put to Action Comics, to Flash, to Suicide Squad. And so now you're giving more space and more room for those characters to grow. But that's just my opinion.
That sounds like the transference hypothesis, that if you put the, it's like back at, remember, have good feelings about how Batman and Stephanie Brown and basically everyone in the Bat family behaved during War Games?
Yes.
That event?
Yes.
Oh, people had good feelings about that?
Nope.
No.
I had nothing but bad feelings. I'm like, I had no idea what was going on, and I realized that, oh, this is just one long extended character assassination. And having Leslie Tompkins refuse to provide pain medication to someone.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Oh, yes. That's how you know Dan Didio was a visionary, because people stopped reading Batman comics for several years after that. And you want to know what happened? They didn't buy any DC comics. It was like, if someone was that bad with their bread and butter, there's no way they're going to know what they're doing with anything else. And then, of course, you have Emil Hamilton being a villain. You had a lot of Didio first asserting himself. But that's the thing with the idea of transference. A lot of the readers on Batman aren't as experienced with continuity, aren't as seasoned as the people that are on Flash or Green Lantern, because you have things like the animated series, because you have the movies, you have a lot more completely new readers. Like, how many people who read other comics will sit there and have to educate on why Batman doesn't beat the Flash? Because no, Flash is actually a really smart person. He's actually a lot smarter than Batman because he can move that fast.
I'm just kidding.
I'm like, but still, or Batman can beat Deathstroke. I'm like, I love Batman. But I'm like, as someone who read up on Deathstroke, I'm like, no, most of the time Deathstroke's going to take it because he's a superhuman version of Batman that does not hold back. He basically has the equivalent of adamantium, or basically the equivalent of vibranium on him, so that he can take hits from people like Superman. Like, that's because Deathstroke doesn't play around like that, where it's like, oh, I'm not going to have something so that people can still hit me. No, he's got superpowers that even if he got hit, it still wouldn't drop him. And then he's going to put on the equivalent of vibranium over his entire body, not just a shield. Why? Because that's how a mercenary would work. So I'm like, once you explain that to a Batman movie, they're like, oh, Batman really isn't going to beat somebody like that. He's like he's got this full body armor. He's got the vibranium sword, which is basically adamantium. It's like, he's like Wolverine and Captain America, but with no morals. And he's got Batman genius level intellect because of his enhancement. Like, oh, there's no way he's taking this guy out. Like, but so many movie readers.
Well, to back up Deathstroke, I'm sorry. But no, I just wanted to back up your point. Deathstroke uses 99% of his brain capacity that normal humans don't have access to. So not only is he stronger and faster than Batman, he could be smarter as well. But also with Deathstroke, it also depends on who's writing these characters. Because some people, I've seen some books where Deathstroke can beat Batman easily, and another book where they're like evenly matched. Like you mentioned the Arkham games, Arkham Origins. Well, they had Deathstroke part of an experiment, but physically him and Batman were evenly matched. So
that fight was so good too.
It's fight, but it's like
it's so good.
No, it's great. It is. Those Arkham games are great, but if you're writing these books, there has to be some sort of consistency. You know, like when
Batman can beat anyone with prep time. Let's be real here.
Right. Exactly.
The problem is Deathstroke's a dude who's a master of prep too. That's what made Deathstroke such an interesting. He was supposed to be like, he was the first real attempt at a full evil Batman that, you know, really clicked.
Right.
That it was like every single point, Wolfman and Perez were like, this is what makes him more formidable, and this is also what makes him evil. Like people
That's
talk
part of
about
what
Batman
made
and
Judith
Robin.
Contract such a good run in Teen
Right.
Titans.
Well, let's not forget
Except for the
You know how
terrorist
how
stuff.
people have the subtext for Batman and Robin and all that messed up. You know how they make that inference, right? How inappropriate that is. Well, try Deathstroke and Terra. That wasn't subtext. That was text.
Yeah. Ugh.
Deathstroke is a Teen Titans villain, right? When exactly did he graduate to a Batman villain?
He's never been a full Batman villain. He is.
I understand that. No, I understand that. But when did that transition take place? That's what I'm asking. When did he jump?
I think it was the Arkham games. I'm not sure.
Never. He never became a full.
Yeah, not full
He
on.
never
I
became
mean,
a full
kind of now
Batman
he's
antagonist.
becoming the king of villains or whatever right now. But I mean, he's kind of used all over. But
But now
yeah.
when people talk of Deathstroke, like in the
They think of
Arkham game,
Batman.
even before, he has been listed as part of Batman's Rogues Gallery.
yeah,
I'm talking
you're
about-
right. He has been.
Right, but
That's because until
that's what I'm
recently,
asking.
Teen Titans was a Batman book more than anything else. Oh, I got shut up.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine.
This sounds like a comic book conversation in a comic shop.
So,
And
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Hominus.
thanks. And have you noticed that the issue with DC is that it's using too much resources on Batman? It has like 10 titles right now, video games, animated.
Hey, we're getting a Wonder Woman video game. Don't forget about that. That's
How would you
awesome.
make a
One
Superman
Wonder
video game
Woman video
that
game
doesn't become
against what?
entirely boring?
4, 5
Boring.
video games of Batman?
Yeah, but
No, where I'm
I don't
going-
know. I
I
can't even
say
be
it-
mad at it because I
Sorry.
enjoy
no,
that
no,
stuff.
No, it's not
Marvel
that.
does
I
the
am
same
mad.
with Spider-Man. I keep saying it. They do the same thing
Yeah.
with Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Mm.
where I'm going with this is
Yeah.
DC is using too much resources on Batman that could be that they could they could be using on other characters.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, how many titles has Martian Manhunter?
I mean,
how many titles
after
has
Steve
The
Orlando,
Question?
well, Martian Manhunter is in the backup of action, I believe, right now. But nothing solo since Steve Orlando's run.
I would say as a nerd, I love the StarCraft series, but I knew when World of Warcraft took off that I was never in my life ever going to get a StarCraft 3. Because however, and StarCraft 2, best RTS game, like one of the best selling RTS games of all time, most popular fan base, most devoted fan base. But I understood that however good that was, they put that talent on a World of Warcraft expansion, it's going to make 10x whatever they could get with a StarCraft game. That's the problem with Batman. You can put a team to make a great Batman game, and really you've got a guy jumping on rooftops. Try making a balanced Superman game. Imagine the conceptual difficulty of making people feel that they're not getting a nerfed down Superman and also having a challenge that they feel has some meaningful stakes as opposed to every mission being something involving a multiversal threat that Superman punches in the face hard
Right.
just once.
Let me get this super chat real quick, guys. Thank you, Robert, very much. The only reason, I don't get to see there. The only reason Suicide Squad is considered Batman related is solely because of Harley Quinn. Suicide Squad should never count as a Batman property. No, I completely agree. Suicide Squad is completely separated from being Batman, and Harley Quinn's not even in Suicide Squad right now, so it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I would say it's Harley Quinn and Deadshot because let's remember, Deadshot is a Batman villain.
He's not in. Wait, he's not in it either.
But
So
William
we're good.
Cobb is in the Suicide Squad, though.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's
shush.
known as one of the iconic members. That's why I bring him up.
Right. And if you go back, you had originally a character named Oracle in the Ostrander run, who happened to be Barbara Gordon after the Killing Joke.
Yeah.
So Suicide Squad had a lot of, would consistently have Batman related characters in their roster to boost that readership. So would it count as a Bat book? It probably shouldn't because it's an ensemble, but
Yeah. Hominus has to take off. I wanted to make sure we were able to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us, Hominus. I really appreciate it.
It was
Thanks
a
for
pleasure.
coming, Ominous. Have a good
Bye,
night.
Hominous.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Guys, and once
His-
again, thank you so much
Yeah.
for the invitation. Have a
Oh,
good
no
night.
problem.
Great
Yeah,
talking to
thanks
you.
for coming, sir.
Bye. You know what? I do have another question for you. Do you guys think that I know a lot of people mind it? I'm not necessarily one of those people. But what about the legacy and mantle changes? How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like it hinders the other titles?
You mean like with other different
Like,
Spider-Man and all that stuff?
No. Like, okay, so specifically right now we're
Maybe.
seeing Aqualad become Aquaman. Do you think that hinders the titles as compared to we've got, just a Bruce Wayne Batman?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
it
think
could,
a
it
lot of
could.
it depends on, because DC right now, like in terms of like you brought up Aqualad becoming Aquaman, like
Yeah.
they're sort of like a lot of people, including myself, are getting a lot of like all new art, all different Marvels vibes in the sense that they're kind of burning out the mantle swaps and all that stuff.
Oof. How?
People are always going to cling more to what they're familiar with.
Right. Yeah,
Superman-
we love
Yeah.
our nostalgia. We love our characters.
Yeah,
It's not-
people
it's
don't
not
very
just
necessarily
protective.
like
But no, it's-
reinvention unless it's good.
But it's not just nostalgia, not just what you know before, but currently, Superman is not just, or Batman is not just what we know back then. It's what he is right now. He's established. He's the foundation that works. So if you have a mantle come in to replace him, if you don't build it up properly, if you just say, okay, he's new, that's it, then no one's going to want to cling to that. Not naturally.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I have a kind of secondary question to that. Why did it work with people like Jakeem Thunder?
I don't know who that is.
Thunderbolt.
I have no idea what that is.
Okay,
He was
so
a
why did it
Thunderbolt.
work?
Thunderbolt.
Jakeem Thunder or Crimson Avenger or anybody that took over for the Rick Tyler. Why did it work for those characters?
I'll tell you.
But
I'll give
people
you a
are
better
so-
example. I got a better
Go ahead.
example. Batman Beyond.
Oh, so good.
Tim
Or
Drake.
White Knight even.
But it works
Wait a
because you look at Batman. He's 90 years old. He's decrepit. So obviously he can't be Batman anymore. So now you have to come in with a young kid to replace him. There's a reason for him to be replaced. It's in a different timeline, like years in the future. So it's not access to us, and you have a reason for someone to replace Batman. It's Spider-Man 2099. Way in the future, different person being Spider-Man. So
I
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a manga thing. Like, okay, with manga, you know how they have like the shonen and all that, and they have all the tropes. But when you read a manga and you've been reading them for a while, you realize that the super big hit, like Attack on Titan, has essentially most of the story beats of Mobile Suit Gundam. Right? Boy finds robot, goes in the giant robot. He's the only one who can really just handle business in ways that almost no one else can, with a handful of other people. That was Mobile Suit Gundam. And then you realize that, I think probably around the point when Amuro kills Lala Soon, that, dude, this guy is seriously messed up because he killed this woman that he said he loved, that he felt like he loved, and he didn't stop the attack. He kept trying to kill Char during that fight. Like, because he was like, yo, what's the point of me accidentally killing the love of my life if the guy I was actually trying to kill gets away? So let me finish it up. So that this is going to connect. Then you get Attack on Titan, and essentially at first you think, oh, this is, Eren might seem a little bit intense, but ultimately he's going to turn it around and become a decent person. No, he kills 80% of the planet because at the end of the day, he wasn't able to stop being in war mode. Everybody else, like, Levi and all those crew, when they got to the basement, they basically were like, we won. We finished it. They got rid of all the Titans. They're done. Then even Armin and Mikasa, they were still like, yeah, we still got to do what we got to do. They get to the beach and they see the ocean. Armin is like, oh man, I'm done. But out of all of them, the one who was like, Eren he was in war mode. That was it. He's like, oh, there are other people on the other end of this. They're the ones who did this. We got to get them next. And that's how that's how he turned into a semi-villain. The reason I mention that is you have this archetype, like Batman is an archetype. You have Lord of the Rings is an archetype, right? Everyone loved Lord of the Rings, but then you get Game of Thrones, and at first people were like, oh, this is so different. I'm like, no, because one of your big through lines was having the corrupt king, your mad king in Lord of the Rings. And then, of course, you have your perfect king and everything is happily ever after forever and ever. No, Game of Thrones is like, that's not how it goes. The guy who can take out a mad king with that institutional power is not necessarily the same person that can run a kingdom in peacetime. Then you have all your other stuff going on, and it's essentially taking the notion that people already have of this completed story and then saying, let's start after that story is over, and that's going to be our beginning, and then we're going to go ahead from there. With most of the plot for Attack on Titan, it felt like after the end of a Gundam series. And I'm like, oh man, this is why manga works, is so many times when you look at this great hit after this next one, like Claymore, I love Claymore, but then I'm like, oh, this is essentially taking place like a splinter off of from the Golden Age arc, where instead of Griffith becoming evil, he becomes a better person. I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like, this is why manga is doing so well. It's like these different stories are taking these archetypes and then they're progressing that archetype in a different way. Because I love Claymore, and then I heard about Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul takes this idea of the tragic half-breed and is like, look, didn't ask for it, but it's going to be what it is. So if you know about what ghouls have to eat, it's like, look, he didn't ask for it, but look, he's not going to sit there hating himself all day. But
I love Tokyo Ghoul. Kaneki's my favorite. My favorite when it comes to manga. But yeah,
I've actually never read Tokyo Ghoul.
It's my favorite. I couldn't actually read Attack on Titan. I have it, but I was just like, oh, that art. Ooh. It's something else. I can't get into manga like I can comics. Even when it comes to like, what was it? Gotham, Future State Gotham. I stayed on for a couple issues, but yeah, it was like nah. So Robert, why do you think the issue of mantle
Legacy?
swapping? Yeah, the legacy. It's worked a lot, but
yeah, it has.
A lot of people don't like it now.
To be honest, in my opinion, I think a lot of the ones that have worked, many of them had good stories, were done with stories in mind. Now, you brought up Jakeem Thunder and all that. I think everyone's reaction is saying, who was a good answer right there. A lot of those that became permanent ones that most people didn't even know who they were. You could do that under the radar and most people won't even care. Unless they want to use it as an example of, hey, they race bent it. But that being aside,
Jamie Reyes is Blue Beetle.
Okay,
Yeah,
that is
absolutely
one of those
example.
except now, yeah. That wait, what is that noise I keep hearing?
Oh, sorry, that's me. I'm sort of writing something to myself.
All right. No, I was just hearing that noise. I'm like, wait, what's that? But anyway, but Jaime, that was the case where you had the editors and everyone, even though it wasn't selling well, they made sure it, they kept going as long as they could. It wasn't doing very well at all, but they let it finish its storyline. They made sure they got another creative team who kept doing. They gave Jaime every chance they could, and sure enough, it built enough of an audience. And then by the time the title ended, you were able to then move into stuff like Young Justice and all that.
Right.
Now, as far as now, you do have other ones that are done, like I said, with stories in mind, stuff like Lady Thor, Azrael, things like that, where it's done with a story in mind. Those ones I accept. Unfortunately, but you also got ones that started doing it with no story in mind, zero story. They're just like, oh, we're going to change it until we're done, and then we'll put the genie back in the bottle unless you tell us not to. And
But who goes into a story who goes into that idea with no story in mind?
A lot of the guys at Marvel did a lot of that.
Maybe. I guess I'd
Marvel,
say maybe.
I think Marvel ruined
Iron
it more.
Fist.
I would toss,
like
I would
they
go
burnt
in
it
the
out.
Comics by Perch. I will invoke Comics by Perch at this point. He did talk about how a lot of times they need to get new things. They would have to create that opportunity in like a venture capital way, where you're tossing a lot of ideas out all at once with the expectation that most of them are going to fail.
Right.
New 52, I really think was DC trying a huge number of stuff, having China Miéville writing Dial H for Hero. I'm like, as a fantasy guy, that's a huge. They had a lot of huge names. They had Brad Meltzer, they had Greg Hurwitz. They have a lot of huge names. I mean, Jodi Picoult had a Wonder Woman run way back in the day. Like,
that run was not good. It was meant to tie into Amazon's Attack, but two, the way she wrote Wonder Woman was like she just got off the island. The way she wrote her, it's like she didn't know how to pump gas. If you actually read everything, you would have known she worked in fast food and all that stuff. She understands a lot of concepts.
But still, with Marvel, with Marvel, DC, if they want to try to see if a new character would work, there are two ways. One is you have to keep them in stories for years and years and years, essentially by mandate. So there's one approach where you have to mandate a bunch of new characters to be in established storylines, which is going to annoy writers that don't really want to include them. Right. The other version is you do something like All New, All Different, where in a brief period of time, you do a bunch of mantle swaps, because Batman got mantle swapped, Superman got mantle swapped because Death of Superman was going on at the same time. Wonder Woman lost her powers, and so you had Artemis on the Justice League. And so that gave a lot of opportunities for them to try a bunch of different things. And when the dust settled, people like Steel, people like Connor Kent, and I think they actually did. People turned around and started liking Azrael. So you had several characters that took off. They never became like super, super big. But the fact that they were viable in ways that Aquaman, even under Peter David, couldn't be viable, said a lot. And also, it gave them the motivation with how people responded to the little bit of time of Nightwing as Batman to take a chance and say, why don't we put Nightwing as an ongoing?
Right.
And this was after they had Robin. And then after that, they said, why don't we try this new, after they did No Man's Land, why don't we try again with Cassandra Cain? And then then you had a problem with Nightwing. You had Nightwing in an ongoing. You had Cassandra Cain as Batgirl in an ongoing, and you had Robin in an ongoing, and they were all okay. And then in 2002, 2003, they put of all characters Harley Quinn in ongoing, and it was doing about the same level as the other three. Catwoman was also doing it. Like, so this is how it happened.
She's awesome.
Right, this is how it happened. It was piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. And at some point, someone should connect the dots that, like, hey, Slam Bradley is a pretty engaging character. You could have him in something, sure. And guess what? That guy was made by Siegel and Schuster, who made Superman. Barbara Gordon was made by the same person who came up with Hal Jordan. That these old established characters that started off in backups were usually designed by the same people that made iconic characters. That's why they can compete. That so many of those stories were shaped by the same greats that did those other great stories. So
true.
You know what though? Oh, sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
I was just going to say but then you also have other cases where you have something like Peter David's Supergirl. People were still enjoying that going on, but then eventually it got to a point where, and he was ready to reinvigorate and do Blonde Justice, which you would have had Supergirl, pre-crisis Supergirl. You would have had Linda Danvers Supergirl, and you would have had Power Girl all working together. Why they cancel it? Not because of sales, because some people were in favor of it. It's because the Superman creative team decided we're going to get rid of her and bring in our own Supergirl, Seer L, which hardly lasted that long. In the end, was a total waste.
Well, which one was Matrix Supergirl? Because
she wasn't Matrix anymore. She became the Linda Danvers Supergirl. Matrix was taken out of the equation.
And then after the Batman Superman arc, where they had to take out that giant asteroid that had the return of Kara Zor-El, Supergirl.
Yes. They did that. So, that last arc. It was meant to lead into Blonde Justice, but then the Superman creative team decided, oh, no, we're going to bring the Seer L girl, who everyone hated. No one liked Seer L outside of the Superman team.
As a person who quit Marvel over how they did Ben Reilly back in '96 when they were 11, there's always someone who's going to like a character, and when they feel that they got done dirty, they're gonna be not happy.
Yeah, but they got rid of Linda just for the CRL girl. And again, she didn't last long. She ended up amounting to nothing. The only time she was ever good was when she appeared during the attack on the White House during Superman Batman. That was the only time she ever worked. And yeah, though they got rid of Linda and Blonde Justice, and Peter David was willing to bring back Power Girl being from Earth 2. He was willing to do it before Jeff Johns did it. Again.
Let me ask you guys this, because I've been seeing this in the chat, and it was also brought up on a stream that I did with I don't know if you guys listen to Reggie Collects at all.
I watched your stream. I thought that was so good. That's what made me think to invite you, actually.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, the stream was amazing. Reggie's a great guy and does a lot for the comic book collecting community and has some great takes. So, but one of the questions that he had asked me was, how do you feel about Falcon taking the mantle as Cap as opposed to Bucky taking the mantle as Cap? And I know that that's been kind of flying around in the comment section or in the chat tonight. And my answer actually got a lot of backlash. I basically just said that with Bucky and the Ed Brubaker run had taken so much time, and I think this is what you guys are saying as well with Bucky, because they brought him back to life, and then they made him the Winter Soldier, and then he had to establish himself as the Winter Soldier, and then he had to establish himself as Cap. So it was this gradual, it was a long-term story that over time allowed him to take up the mantle and the shield, which was kind of a progression as like Cap's sidekick, like a Robin and Batman type of thing. Whereas Falcon, for me at least, when I was reading the Cap series, I don't remember any semblance of storyline. It was just kind of Captain America issue number 1, Falcon. And I didn't really know where this had come from. So what do you guys think about that swap? Does that seem like it was a little premature? Regarding Bucky and Falcon?
Do you mean of comics or TV or both?
I personally say when Brubaker did it, again, it was part of Bucky's character. You needed this. It was needed for Bucky to develop him more because of what Brubaker, the whole point of everything with Brubaker's Cap run was to establish Bucky as why they shouldn't just kill him off again once he leaves. It was to make him, develop him as a character, set him up as one thing, and then move him into something else by the time he was done with him. But as far as
they brought back Jason Todd,
Jason was different. Jason was slightly different, slightly. Judd actually makes it clear he did have other things in mind, and then they yanked it away. I think Judd, and that is similar to with the Sam Wilson as Captain America. I think in that regard, that someone did have a plan, but then it was yanked away from him and given to someone else who made it more political and ended up tainting any goodwill people had for it.
And I think when it comes to the mantle swaps like that, like I mentioned Jakeem earlier, right? He was just a kid. He wasn't an identity before. He wasn't Falcon before. And I don't have an issue with him taking up that mantle. I don't. But my thing is what happens is his identity as Falcon was already cemented for so long. That's how we know him. There's nothing wrong with the Falcon identity either. But when you have different versions, like, Rick taking over for his dad, Rex, he was just a person. He wasn't anybody before. He wasn't our man before. So we're seeing these mantle swaps, that take away in a way part of their identity in order to prop them up when they don't necessarily need propping up because they're already great characters to begin with. Now in the shows that we're seeing, because people actually age in real life, like you can't have the same person. I like that version of Falcon as Captain America. I thought it was great the way they did Winter Soldier and Falcon.
That transition to Captain America over what they did in the comics.
100% agree. 100% agree.
I don't even remember.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I don't even remember them doing any type of gradual thing with Falcon becoming Cap.
And really didn't. Like,
and like you said, Tristan, I think you know, when you have someone who has a lot of agency, you know, like with Falcon, and you've got kids who are reading Falcon titles, you know, back in the 80s and 90s or whatnot, if they're reading that and they see agency in Falcon himself, they want to read more Falcon. They want to be more like Falcon.
Exactly.
It would be like if Wolverine put on a Silver Surfer suit. I would be like, that, wait, so now he's like the, you know, now he's
It
the
feels
sentinel
wrong.
of the
Yeah.
spaceways? Yeah, no, Wolverine is Wolverine. He already has established himself, like you said, and he has agency himself. He doesn't need another mantle in order to give him more agency. And I think
Right.
that's what they were trying to do. So sorry, go ahead, Kenneth. I think you were about to say something.
Yeah. No, I would say since they've both Falcon and Bucky have had an opportunity to step into the mantle, so to speak, of Captain America, they
Mhm.
should at least have an equal opportunity to do that. If they've done it in the comics, they should do it on the TV shows. But they've each had the opportunity. They've been Captain America. Then they should go back to who they were and saying, okay, I understand this is a heavy responsibility. I'm not ready to do it. Mantles, I mean, a character should be a character. You know, that's fine. I don't think
Right.
every character should have its own mantle. I don't want a Spider-Man mantle or a Batman mantle or even a Captain America.
Oh
mantle.
boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I disagree to a
Miller needs Miller number
But
one
tell
should
me,
be on
tell
here
me.
'cause,
Now,
let's
I say every character. I'm not saying every single character shouldn't have it, but
Okay.
now,
you
for
were talking about
instance,
some
it
mental
works with
confusion.
Flash and Green Lantern. There've been
It works
multiple
with
Flashes. There've been with
T'Challa
Green
too,
Lanterns.
because he's a
It works
key.
with Robin.
Yeah.
Robin, yeah.
Batgirl. Wow. Let's talk about some mantle confusion there, because yeah,
And for the record, Cassandra Cain, my favorite Batgirl. That's just all I'm saying.
Barbara Gordon.
I'm
all
actually
day.
gonna have to disagree. Mine's a Stephanie Brown.
Ooh.
And this is where
I
they-
like all of them. I like all of them.
Correct.
Wait, Stephanie
That's-
Brown was Batgirl?
Yes, for
Oh,
2
yeah.
years.
Yeah, right
Ryan
before
Miller
Flashpoint.
It was Robin too.
It's her.
Oh, yeah,
run
right
was
before they
so
killed
good,
her.
if I remember
And
correctly.
then
I'm not a
it was
DC
Sabotage.
person. I'm Marvel. Sorry. I
All
love
right.
Batman. That's it.
But yeah,
What
Yeah.
about what it?
Wait,
Go ahead.
Stephanie's run of Batgirl actually reminds me a lot of like what they did with Hawkeye in the Disney Plus show, because like in her run you actually saw Barbara kind of mentoring Stephanie on how to
Right.
be Batgirl. And it like the whole comic actually heavily involved those two, and again that kind of comes back to like my perspective on like mantle swapping, is that people aren't against it, they just need a reason, and they also need time, like, or like us like one or the other, or like when it comes to something big, it's better to have to gradually do it over an amount of time, like set it up.
I think another.
Go ahead, Max.
Sorry, but just real quick. I think another thing to add to your point, Dan, would also be reverence towards the character that they originally took from. So, like, you know, if you're getting a version of Flash, give reverence towards your main, you know, your Barry Allen, your Wally West. You know,
Yes.
don't trash
Mhm.
them in order
Don't
to
demean
promote
them.
this one. Yeah.
What about the
I
Batman
may-
show?
Oh,
That-
I
that
agree.
made
I
perfect-
think that's actually
made
something
Batman perfect when
that
it's with
I've
the
seen
woman.
recently with
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. It's like
Hmm.
sort of like why there's been backlash to the new one is because a lot of the creators kind of trashed the J.R.R. Tolkien's original vision.
Right. Right.
It's but
Derek
like Jaime,
Johnson?
like Jaime. Look at
Yeah.
Jaime. He sorry, I was gonna say Jaime respected and revered Ted.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And look
Mhm.
at stuff like Future State. I mean, it was Joshua Williamson. I love Joshua Williamson, but Jace Fox fixed Gotham like Batman never could. Shut the fuck up.
Again, I
Like
still,
that, it's so disrespectful.
I'm still convinced
It
that was
is.
editorial. I'm still convinced that was editorial, or he was given that was what Ridley wanted to do. So he felt like, well, mine's after what Ridley's doing, so I guess I got to reference it. That's what I think. I think that sounds like a Ridley thing.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I'm gonna actually throw a little bit. Go ahead, Kenneth, and then
No,
I
I
want to
wanna
throw a
give
little
it-
bit of a bomb in.
Derek Johnson, you're absolutely right. I am a Doctor Doom person. That's all.
No,
You're exactly right. Thank
no,
you, sir.
Dr. Doom is not allowed on this channel because
So
he doesn't sit with the cool kids.
So you hate Reed Richards then, don't you, Kenneth? You hate Richards.
He's one of my favorite villains, man. He's one of the greatest villains ever. So
Richards.
Oh, another point I want to bring up is like sort of like when they are blunt, like when they don't necessarily take their time when it comes to mantle passing. I actually think in some instances that does work. However, only for like the ones that are unknown. Like for example, Young Justice. If you watch the show after reading the comics, you're gonna be you might get a little whiplash because of how different it is. But however, it actually worked in Young Justice case because it wasn't as well known as, let's say, Teen Titans.
Mm-hmm.
But though to their credit, I'll say that they were honest about the fact that the show was an Elseworlds. Like, it features none of the same roster except for Superboy and completely different themes, etc. But again, I think a lot of reasons why people didn't have as like bad of a response was because it's not as well known. Because of that, they were able to be more blunt with the changes, a bit more big and bold, really quickly, as opposed to a bigger property, which if they had done those changes would probably have received lots of backlash.
I've heard a lot of good about Young Justice too.
It
like
is
a
very
lot.
good. I actually have a video planned very soon. It'll be my next video.
Oh, that's
Teen
awesome.
Titans, the 2000 series, where they had like half of the roster. They didn't have Kid Flash on there. They didn't have Wonder Girl. It was just Robin, Starfire, Cyborg, and Raven.
Beast Boy
and
too.
Beast Boy.
And Beast Boy. Right. It just had those characters, and they and then they had Tara, but she would, granted, let's be honest, they could not do the Judas Contract on a Cartoon Network show airing in like afternoon time slot. So
no way.
Well,
they did an animated movie.
Wonder Girl though had an issue at that point though. I think they would have, but unfortunately they had issues with the legality and
they actually wanted. I believe they were actually going to do Wonder Girl instead of Cyborg, but due to legal issues that they ran into, they decided to go for Cyborg instead.
Yeah, and let's not forget Kid Flash that they didn't put in there. Wally West
appeared later.
Well, he was the guest star in that show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. Yeah. So.
What the? Okay, so weird chat. No, I want to throw a little bit of a rock in here because I know this is a bit divisive. I have, for the most part, been enjoying Son of Kal-El. But I know a lot of people, like this last issue was phenomenal. Bruno Redondo can draw everything. Oh, wait, no, that was Nightwing. Okay, it was Nightwing, but he was in it. But anyways, Bruno Redondo's so talented. When it comes to a character that is so big, Superman's so big, right? How do you feel about a character getting his sidekick, right? It's his son taking over that mantle. I know a lot of people don't like it. I personally don't mind it because we get the Warworld saga out of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Dan?
Personally, I like Jonathan's character. However, I wouldn't have made him Superman. I would just given him a different mantle. That's just my opinion.
Gotcha.
The problem is they couldn't de-age him after Bendis. So
yes.
This is pretty much
that was a horrible choice in my opinion.
Bendis
was a horrible choice.
I blame him for what's going on with all the piracy on Action Comics. Bendis drove everyone
people
to
away.
Okay. Bendis was already pretty hit or miss in Marvel, but when it comes to DC, he's just plain awful in my opinion.
He has some good.
Naomi was a good
okay.
character.
Dave Walker though worked on that though. David Walker
Brad
worked
Walker,
that
I thought.
Brad Walker. No, that's the art. No, Brad Walker's the artist. I think David Walker is the writer.
Yeah, Jamal Campbell I think is doing the art for the new one, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
You know, it's interesting you guys bring up Bendis. I've been watching episodes on Amazon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The first 3 seasons were great. Him and Joss Whedon, I feel, have similar strengths and similar weaknesses. Forgive me if that's off topic, but he's written comics as well, Whedon. So I feel they have similar strengths and a lot of the same weaknesses with dialogue and overriding and going off on. They just need to tighten their focus, so to speak, and then they can write better material. But I just wanted to bring it out there.
I think a lot of the issue with Jonathan not being necessarily as accepted as what they would have originally intended is it was Jonathan, or it was Jace first, and then it was Aqualad, and then it was Jonathan, and people were like, all right, we get it. You're changing the heroes up. You're changing things. And I think people kind of clutch their pearls and go, I want what I know. I want what I love, and I want what I've been reading. And how do you get somebody to open up to something new? I think the nostalgia lives within us, but I also think that we need to figure out a way to get people's eyes open.
Yes.
Without pushing it down their throats, right? No, you can't be like, you have to read this, jerk. Like, you just can't. But there's got to be a way to open people up to new ideas and new characters. And it seems like on every level right now, DC isn't performing when it comes to putting the marketing out there, necessarily getting people hyped, getting people excited. And I don't know what do you think they can do to change that?
Well, Tristan, you'd made a video not too long ago, basically talking about bringing in a new era of a Justice League, and that DC doesn't really have, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I heard was that DC doesn't really have the confidence to put these, like, hey, if you're going to go full in on this new Justice League, go full in, like,
yes,
introduce these characters, start promoting everything. Just have the confidence in these characters to push them and say, you know what, like, we believe in these characters and we want you guys to believe in them too. Not, if you don't accept them, you're a bad guy. Just, we want you guys to love these characters as much as we do. That's why we're going to bring them into the world, blah, blah. And I think for so many of these different mantles, I don't think DC has the confidence to promote them enough, because they don't actually believe in what they're saying at times.
Right.
So
I 100% agree.
Okay, cool. And I it's unfortunate because I would love to see DC be very confident. Yeah, right. Yeah. Be very confident in these storylines and in these characters, because I think if they really went all in and said, okay, like, here's this new initiative, we really would see, okay, how are sales doing, or how much are people loving these characters, because it is a very nuanced balance between not too much nostalgia, but not too much of like new kind of different stuff. You kind of have to toe that line between the two of nostalgia, new changes, and then also allowing people to see their characters, their loved characters that they always know, and give them kind of like somewhat of a comfort in that. So I don't know, like you guys have been saying, it's a fine line to find like where it is that DC needs to sit at, but
it
I think
sounds
they
like
just
a
need to have some
5G
balls.
argument.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Didio was trying that same thing, and then he got defenestrated. And I mean, granted, it was sort of like a shame walk how so many people on Comics YouTube celebrated him getting fired. But you can hear my smile.
Celebrate someone losing their job.
I'd like to reply to Gabriel's thing here. Some of them have not, and are justified handouts and all that. I agree with that to an extent. But Jackson Hyde, it's made clear Arthur's not going anywhere. He's just, being a dad right now. This is just something like, and it's been shown already. He's going to come back in when needs to. And Yara, except in Future State, has not taken over yet. So now in the case of John, he's holding the mantle as well until his dad gets back. All of these are temporary at best. And at least DC's being more upfront about it, which was the biggest difference. I mean, I had John Suntress from Word Balloon on, and he agreed wholeheartedly. The big problem with Marvel is it was a case where they had no replacements. You had nowhere else to see these characters. It was basically, we've changed them, deal with it. You're an istophobe if you don't like it. Whereas DC is saying, you don't like it? Here's another title right over here that's still in continuity. Go check it out over there. So, yeah, I think there's a big difference between what DC and Marvel are doing.
I want to add to that because I know I've talked about this before because people were going, oh my God, these new people our heads are going to blow off probably and it's agenda. And yeah, again, I'm going to say, yeah, it's an agenda. The agenda is capitalism. You've got the Becoming, well, you've got Aqualad. But if you want your regular Aquaman, you've got, I forget the title's name. With Green Arrow, you've got that one, right?
Deep Target.
I was going to say Deep Beyond. That's
actually a real cool name.
And you've got Son of Kal-El. Then we've got a newbie, but you've also got Action Comics. You've got I Am Batman, but you've also got Detective Comics. Well, he's not there now because of what's going on, but you've also got Batman. So yeah, sure, there is an agenda, but the agenda at the end of the day is wanting to make money while also introducing new characters. So you can still read your Batman in continuity even. You don't even have to go to Black Label. You can still read them, and it's phenomenal. With the Batman Inc. stuff, you can still read all of the characters that you originally love while still introducing new characters and new IPs and trying to promote, well, not necessarily promote them because they don't really do that, but in trying to get them out there. Yeah, they should. And yeah, sure. Yeah, it's capitalism at its finest, and as long as the books are good, I'll keep buying. But you got to give them a chance. Like with Yara, there was no chance, right? There was no way for her. I will never forgive. Never. I'm still mad about that.
I'm personally not reading any DC books at all because I'm so pissed that they canceled Yara Flor.
Sad. It makes me sad.
But Robert, you said, I'm sorry, Tristan. But Rob, you said that's the difference between DC and Marvel. I'm like, is it really though?
Yes, it is because
but
one
you
thing,
mentioned Marvel did all new, all different Marvel. How is that really different?
Because you had no other options. You were told deal with the change. The only one that had another option was Ladies Thor because you still had regular Thor still out there to be used. Now, granted, he didn't have as many books going around the same time, but Amadeus Joe Hulk. Bruce was dead. Tony Stark, he was an AI. He was not even the main focus. You had so many characters that they changed and replaced. Captain America, he was old. He was an old man. He couldn't do anything. They forced it where everyone had to deal with it and accept it or GTFO. You were not even,
So is it different or is it the same thing but different execution?
No, it is very different because at DC you still have both characters. It's similar, but DC is giving you the option still of reading it. Like you don't like Son of Kal-El, then read Action Comics. You don't like or the fact with Jace Fox's Batman. He's only in I Am Batman. He's not in the main Batman titles. He's barely even or in Detective Comics even. Yeah, or in Gotham. Yeah. Things like that.
I'm not questioning you, Robert. I'm questioning DC and Marvel.
Oh yeah, DC is always giving you options.
Yeah, they have a tendency to do the same, make the same mistakes, but each one thinks they're more clever than the other.
Yeah, but I do think though it's because in DC again, it's learning from Marvel's mistakes for once, not repeating their mistakes. They're giving them an option, saying, and they should not be headlining until they gain support. That's a hard, dude. These days, that's hard. Back in the old days, I'd agree with you, but these days where people want instantaneous, reactions. I mean, how many people keep on just assuming they know where a book's going to go as soon as the issue comes out? Like, John,
I do that every single review. I'm like, this is going here, and I am always 100% wrong.
No, you've been good on some part now. Peacemaker, you were way off.
I was way off.
Yeah,
you've been writing others.
I still haven't seen Peacemaker.
You are missing out.
No, I want to. My best friend loves that show. Like, Like, it is on my list. I just need to get to it.
Oh my god, it's
Cryptid,
so
Cryptid Seeker, you were absolutely right. Riri was the first one that was done without a story in mind. There was no story being told. It was Riri. Bendis was just trying to force in a character, and in the end, nothing mattered until Eve Ewing fixed the character. They're both Ewing, sorry.
Absolutely.
They fixed the characters.
Like, that's sort of an example of like big and blunt don't necessarily work when.
I mean, at least with Amadeus
that
Cho.
was a huge change. Like they killed off Tony Stark and just introduced this new character out of nowhere. So of course people weren't gonna respond to that well. Big and blunt don't necessarily mix. It's more of like blunt is best done when it's like unknown and big is sort of done. Is better done when it's subtle.
Yeah, and in case of Amadeus Cho Hulk, though, that was the case where Greg Pak wanted to keep Bruce around. It was Bendis and Marvel decided, let's kill him off. Pak did not want to kill Banner off. He wanted to keep him on as a mentor to Amadeus because Bruce had been cured finally. But nope, they decided, kill him off and you're stuck with it, which really did no service for it. But at least Pak, he had already established Amadeus. He's the one who created the character long ago. So, and a lot of it made kind of sense with the characters, was what Pak had been doing for a while with Hulk. So eventually, that's one of the rare exceptions where it was different than Lady Thor, different than Riri, and unfortunate circumstances made it worse for the creators involved.
I remember a question about the mantle swap and support that led us into this. And as somebody who kind of did some number crunching, and I think I sent something, I'm going to invoke Perch again. I did send him an email about what looks like exponential growth in manga sales in the comic book shops. Like Viz went from like nothing back in 2000 to like 3% in 2016, like 4% in 2017, 8% in 2018, like 7.5% in 2019, and like 13% of the units sold in 2021. So that makes me think that if Marvel and DC have someone who's got business sense, they're going to realize that same pattern happened with the book channel sales. Manga wasn't always like completely dominating the shelves. They have the same shelves for graphic novels in Barnes & Noble that they had when I first went over there in like 20 years ago when I was 15. They have the same shelves for comics and stuff. But the difference is at first there was just like one shelf for manga. Then it was like 1.5 shelves. Then it was 2 shelves. And if you've been to a Barnes & Noble and you see the manga section, you know that it's almost, you see like the manga section to the US comic section. It's frightening. The same pattern is repeating in the graphic novel sales in comic shops. I'm not messing with you. I'm not crazy.
The issue is
Barnes & Noble
we aged.
And the comic section, by the way, and this is like one shelf shared for both Marvel and DC.
And almost all the DC stuff is Batman.
There were like 3 different shelves around that one shelf for Marvel and DC, and they were all filled with manga. Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan, all the big ones that are coming out. Chainsaw Man, that one is selling really big. I literally had to be like one of the first ones to get Chainsaw Man #1. And then a bunch of people literally tackled each other for the last issue after I took like the second to last.
Yeah.
Let me get this super chat real quick, and then I want to add something. Bianca, I'm glad we got people who oh no, I'm sorry. I'm glad we got people who watch anime and manga. I really do. But I'd be grateful if someone asked if it was okay to spoil the ending. Didn't finish the manga and not cut up on the anime. Thank you. Sorry, Bianca.
Was that me?
That was totally you. But that's okay. I'm sorry, Bianca. What I want to add here is
the 80%. That was me.
What I want to add here is you're comparing apples to sandpaper. You know what I mean? Like it's a totally different audience. Yes, you can learn from what they're doing, but there's not a lot of 12-year-olds writing comic books. There's not a lot, and that's unfortunate, but we aged with our comic books. It is doing Demon Slayer, all of these things are doing wonderfully. And a lot of it is because kids fucking love it. Kids absolutely love it, and their parents have money and they're buying it. So when we're
and
talking
their
about
parents don't really care what they're reading, because I know kids are reading Chainsaw Man, and I can tell you that book is not written for children. It is filled with nudity and gore.
Doesn't the dude have a chainsaw for a head? Like, that's just not something that's
the dude gets
for
possessed
me.
by a chainsaw demon. That's what it is.
It's so weird. But like, and not only that, the one thing that manga and anime do so well is they've got the synergy, right? With their shows. So they've basically got like 22-minute commercials for their manga that kids want the what goes with it. And it's so similar compared to comics. Every single time, you know, kids want to get the manga after they read the anime or vice versa. It is dominated. Anything that's dominated by kids is going to do very well. Comparing it to American comics, it's so tiring. It's so tiring because yes, you can learn from it, but you're not comparing necessarily even the same format of selling, right? You've got compendium, omnibuses, graphic novels, floppies.
I've covered all of those. Like I'm trying to be as clear or as lucid. With manga, they don't divide manga. They divide their manga by demographic, like boys, girls, child. Like manga is literally just like the format. So like they have seinen manga that's really meant for people that are like 20 plus. Then they've got shonen, which is meant for teenagers, like you said. And then you'll have things like Berserk, which is clearly meant for people that are like post high school. So with manga, they also orient their content with a much longer time horizon. They expect that, like, especially for longer running manga, they expect that their audience is that they are going to keep a portion of their audience all the way into adulthood. That's why with something like One Piece, I just love how they incorporated a little kid after like 20 some years, but then his dad is also in the crew and he happens to be a middle-aged guy. So you have a middle-aged guy who's like 40 years old, and then you have a little 10-year-old kid. And then, this series started in 1997. So if someone was like 15 years old in 1997, they're going to be about 40. They're going to be 40 years old right now. But look, you've got a kid now. You're 40 years old. You're married. You have a kid. Let me go get my kid some One Piece. And look, I'm a Japanese person. There's a Japanese samurai who's about the same age I am. That's how you have the synergy. I'm like, they can bring in 40-year-old men and 10-year-old boys and have 15-year-old kids picking up brand new. So they can get adult readers, and that's what's happening to a degree in the comic shops. Like the readership in the comic shops is getting older, and some of those younger adult readers have already seen the effects of manga. That manga doesn't try to condescend to the audience the way that some of these comics come across as really thinking that comic book readers are not as educated or as smart as we actually are on average.
What are you reading that condescends to you that way?
I got that feeling when I was reading Cecil Castellucci's Batgirl. I got that feeling when I tried to read. It was rough. But yeah, that Castellucci's Batgirl that drove me away from DC for half a year. But
but that's one comment.
One book was the Rick Grayson stuff, the Heroes in Crisis, just the overall past year and a half, everything after the wedding was just.
But everything is subjective. There are people out there that enjoy. Okay, I didn't want Catwoman and Batman to get married. Bruce loves Batman, or Batman loves Bruce Wayne more than he can ever love Catwoman. I'll never.
Or if they're gonna get married, at least let them get married and follow through with it.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Why?
Because Batman can. Because I love Catwoman and I love her by herself. That's me being selfish. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I liked Helena Wayne Huntress. I like the idea of Helena Wayne being able to exist in DC at some point. I want the marriage to happen.
Me
The fact
too.
that I was born
Yeah, I get that.
after, like, I mean, I was born right around the time of Crisis on Infinite Earth, where they destroyed Earth 2. And the fact that when I finally got into comics, late as I was, I'm like, Earth 2 is what DC Comics should be, and this is what we have. Needless to say, I didn't like how they did Superboy Prime because he was right on the facts. Mike dropped.
What? Okay, this is crazy.
I'm
Rom
sorry,
V
that
is
was all.
condescending. Not you. How is Rom V is my favorite writer ever. Me and Gabriel not friends anymore.
What? What?
I love
Ram V?
Rom V is my favorite writer ever. I'm not gonna lie.
I
About
can
that.
understand the
You're
other
probably
one.
pretty mad at me for saying this, but I have no clue who that is.
Justice
Swamp
League
Thing.
Dark, Swamp Thing.
Oh.
He's done Green and Blue,
Catwoman.
or Blue and Green. He's done Catwoman. He's done right now he's doing Radio Apocalypse, which 2
Venom?
is so late.
Yeah, he's doing
Venom,
Venom
yeah.
right now.
Was he the writer on the first Earth run of Justice League Dark?
No.
Oh, that was
No. The first run was I believe during Rebirth he took over from Tinian after Rebirth. He wasn't during New 52.
Oh yeah, that explains it. I haven't read Justice League Dark since it ended in the New 52.
Ah.
I
And
came
I
back
think-
a little bit during the witching hour, but I left shortly after since it was the rest of it was boring to me.
Oh my
Guys,
god.
I got a question for you
See-
guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for the whole panel. All you guys are DC people, right?
Mm-hmm. DC
Kinda.
with a
Indies.
summer. I say I have a summer home at Marvel.
There you
I'm
go. That's a good way to
mostly
say it.
DC,
Yeah,
but
that's funny.
Flip it.
Several
I'm gonna
epic
flip it on
manga
this.
series.
I gotcha.
that Opened my eyes after I quit Marvel.
It's cool.
Yeah, like I said, I like to say I have a summer home at Marvel where I might get some of the books. For the most part, I don't go. I would phrase it this way: it's a summer home that I use every other year.
There you go. I buy like Moon Knight and Woman Without Fear, and that's about it. And then I buy most of the indies, or most. I'll start with the number ones, and if I don't like them, then I'm done. But
Yep,
I
and
read most of them.
I think
I
no Marvel. This
think
is the
I'm a
most I've
bit-
been buying. Sorry, Dan.
oh yeah, I'd say I am mostly DC, but that wasn't the same thing when I was a kid. I was very Marvel. Like I love
Same.
X-Men, and
Same.
X-Men
Oh my
was
gosh,
literally
same. Oh, yeah.
what got me. X-Men and
Scarlet
there was
Spider.
this Avengers cartoon they had that was what got me into comics
Yeah.
originally.
The
I will-
the what you guys were talking about, the condensate. Oh my god,
Condescending.
condescending. This is why I pre-record videos in case you can't tell, because I can't talk and sometimes talk backwards. Okay, that thing I don't see because I'm very selective with what I buy.
Same here.
When I buy most DC, and if I feel like, okay, so for example, Home that came out on Image, it wasn't good, I dropped it. If something feels condescending, I just don't read it. It doesn't offend me. It just
Yeah.
wasn't made for me because I know somebody out there else might like it. Like, okay, a really good example is The Other History of the DC Universe. That book was clearly not, I was not its target market, but I bought it and I didn't personally care for it. I know plenty of other people that did, but it didn't turn me away from comics altogether. I'm not sure how something like that could turn, like, really, honestly, comics, or Melvin, how does that turn you away from comics altogether? One
Oh, it didn't
book.
turn me away from all comics. It turned me away
Okay.
from DC. Like Batgirl 47 turned me away from DC because of the last year and a half of what they were doing.
That was bad. I'll give you, that was so bad.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That last arc was.
Yeah, and then it was the fact that I knew that I didn't like what she did with New Gods, but at the same time, I respected the fact that she had to scrap her entire last 6 issues like last minute. So this thing, when it hit, it really did hit with a big interruption because as somebody who liked to do some of the solicit reading, she had a whole Chicago arc for Batgirl planned leading up to issue 50. And then because they went the way they did, she had to scrap it. So what you got was like you got a steaming
She was
pile
pissed.
of fruit. you got a massive pile of poop. And I'm like, I already was, I mean, you could get a feel when some writers are kind of in the effort stage. Tom King had reached effort stage around the point when he needed to kill Alfred off. And it was because of Didio having his goal of 5G, which, what? Do you have a subjective opinion on when Tom King reached effort stage on the Batman run?
Oh no, I wasn't coming on your story. Well, when you say Didio, it's obviously with Didio, but no, I wasn't coming on your story. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. I apologize.
Right. Yeah, my kind of old man rambling. But yeah, DC had done me dirty with Nightwing because I was reading Nightwing, and then we got Rick Grayson. You could feel the only reason we got Castellucci on Batgirl was because Megrid Scott left. I was upset about that because one, she was performing well, and then when we got into that whole Joker arc, I just said they're planning something. It's got that feeling of it had that feeling of Didio even after he was gone, and I just said no. I'm calling it, and I didn't come back for like almost a year.
Well, to be fair though, with 5G though, as people I've been finding out from other people, some other creators, it was always meant to be a Age of Apocalypse thing. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, it was going to be a permanent thing." That was Bleeding Cool's spin, and if that was all it was, I don't think the Dio had a bad idea for that.
Bleeding
now, of
Cool,
course,
never. They'd never say anything.
yeah. So and now,
false.
yeah, I know. So 5G, completely understandable and everything. I just feel like, and by the same time though, like. That wasn't a bad idea from Didio. It was all the other stuff with editorial he had in mind, where editorial would call the shots more so than they did even during New 52. Yeah, I can see why everyone had problems with that.
Here's my thing with Didio, because you guys have been talking about Didio. I think you guys may have been praising him or something, but with Comics and Finance,
me praising Didio.
No.
Yeah,
I've heard one of you guys praise
actually
Didio, but
trashing Didio on the stream.
here's the thing, right? Well, you know why you got Rick Grayson, right?
Because it's Didio.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he hated Dick Grayson. Because
Yeah.
here's the
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
Dick Grayson meant Batman was getting older, and he hated that. And he couldn't outright kill Dick Grayson, so that's where he got Rick Grayson.
He's been trying to do that for a while now, and guess what? I felt he should have been fired for a while. Ever since I didn't even know who he was, but it's like that character, that villain in the background that the hero doesn't know about for so long, and then they suddenly find out, like, you know, all these other little things that have caused you all these problems these last few seasons, you know, they're all really inspired by this one source, and it's like, oh wow. So sorry.
He's like Spectre. What's the character in Spectre? Blofeld? Is that what
Blofeld, yes.
May I say one thing about with Didio? I agree. He had a lot of problems, especially right near the end. He came up with some stupid stuff. But, yeah, just like Ben here. I didn't always agree with him, but I felt he did some good ideas. And, I mean, come on. And there's our creators who like him. And look at the stuff with him and George Perez recently. Boy, that looks like a guy who wanted to destroy comics or did not like comics. The guy, was he good at his job? I think he was more successful than people think. But the stinkers, unfortunately, were big stinkers.
Right.
But you also got to look at how he made sure a lot of these characters, except for the ones where he had some big idea for, he a lot of times put characterization first at a point when, and didn't go the route Marvel was going of, let's screw the characters over for our agenda. He didn't do that at that point. He kept things going much longer than it took. Then once he was gone, that's when it seemed like the floodgates opened for being a bit more political, agenda-driven. And yeah, William Tucker's here. What?
You think it's more political now that he's gone?
I think it started getting more political before he left, right before he left.
Maybe I'm just like.
Oh, I'm just saying compared to what it was before he left.
I was gonna say maybe I have blinders on, but I don't see there may be themes of, you know, current society and stuff, but I don't see that. Like, that's how comics have always kind of been. They've always been a mirror of what's going on.
But
I don't really see a whole lot of politics in it right now.
Oh, but sorry. I was just gonna say, but well, no, and I agree with you for the most part on that, Tristan. I'm just talking about though, would he have let Ridley go as far as he did in a mainstream title, not just 5G future state stuff? No, I don't think the deal would have allowed it. That's what I'm saying.
You mean like with the moral authority and stuff?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, that makes sense then.
That is
Go
what
ahead,
I'm
Kenneth,
personally
I'm sorry.
talking
No, well, Tristan, last time I was on your channel, in fact, your points you were making really stuck with me. It's not about the politics or things going go broke. It's the writing. Things are written better. A story can be political, but it's better writing. It's not overt. You see,
there are some like phenomenal.
Yeah, you need to be creative.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
and there are some really good political comic books, like Recount and some of, even if you look like at Department of Truth, like it's all about conspiracies and you can do it.
Danny O'Neill, our boy, Danny O'Neill.
Yes, he changed everything.
Yes.
Like,
but could Denny O'Neill bring the sales though? That's the reason that they say like, oh, you don't want to put the politics in. The question isn't the politics; it's the sales. It's hard to put politics that are out of sync with the audience. Right now, we're seeing this quote go broke stuff, but the reality is that if you go outside of Marvel and DC, what kind of politics do you see that are at the top of the indie charts? And are they left or right of what you see at Marvel and DC? And I'm going to tell you, most of my indie stuff is way to the left. I even made a video. Like, you realize that for all intents and purposes, the Spartans in 300 were basically communists.
Right.
They were nationalistic communists, like actual communists. You have Rick Grimes' group in The Walking Dead, another group of communists. Like, that's a common theme in comics, is that it's like when you go outside of the mainstream, it is way to the left. The quality has to be higher because it's more competitive. And as a result, when you look at the graphic novel sales, like 25%, like as far as adult graphic novel sales, like 75% of the adult graphic novel sales in bookstores are going to manga titles. Like, this is adult fiction. About 6.5% are going to superhero comics. That's your Marvel and DC. DC is losing to Marvel not because of the superhero content. DC, if you look at Marvel's stuff and you separate the Star Wars, DC is actually running the table on Marvel on superheroes. The problem is Marvel has Star Wars, and Star Wars is like a quarter of their sales, and it puts them over DC month after month. But even then, the fact is, like, as far as bookstores go, and that's really where people start. They start reading comics in bookstores, they buy them in bookstores, and then eventually they buy them in shops.
Oh,
It's like almost 3 times as many are reading books that are not in the superhero genre. And that's probably what's getting a lot of this change going on now. That Marvel and DC realize that the superhero genre is, for the next few years, it's basically as big as it's going to be for a while. And they need to diversify. Marvel can do it better because they have Star Wars and they're acquiring properties. DC, because they shuttered Vertigo, and also it's not a coincidence that so many indie comics, like if they're selling 10,000, they're making as much as they would with DC. And if they're selling the graphic novels like they are now, they can sell 8,000 issues a month in the direct market. And as long as they're performing well in the book channel, they'll actually make more money than they would writing a low tier bat title at DC.
Well, look at stuff like that was on top of the charts for last year. Something is Killing the Children. King Spawn. A lot of the indies are really fucking killing it. Like, a lot of them are stories
and how are they getting good writers for the other stuff at DC and Marvel if a good writer can say I can go on my own?
Yeah, and we're seeing it. Look at, like, I would love for
the Substack.
I know.
Exodus?
Yeah, and Tom Taylor just got an exclusive. Jorge Flores just got an exclusive. They need to catch up people like Ram V, Tom Taylor, Tom King, these people, and get them on exclusives. Jed McKay.
It's not
yes.
just the writers, though. You need solid creative teams.
Yes, absolutely.
And you need
the question. Right. I'm sorry. This goes to the question you were asking earlier, Tristan. How do you prop up the other characters, not Batman? Give them good writers with solid creative teams. Go back to Danny O'Neill. He wrote for Batman for decades. Not only was he a head writer, he was the head editor and headed up all the teams for Batman. He brought in Chuck Dixon, Neil Adams, Doug Munch, and other people, probably other writers there. And he headed up the whole team. You had the Nightfall trilogy. You had his stuff working with Neil Adams. He was the head of all of that. That's how Batman stayed so strong. He brought in Frank Miller and those guys.
Yeah.
He stayed strong for not only the 70s, but on up for the 80s and decades. That's a way you can bring these teams in. And also, you guys mentioned Marvel in the 80s. Jim Shooter was heading Marvel. And a lot of people hated Jim Shooter because he made people get up off their ass and turn it in on time, and people hated him for that. And that's a bunch of BS. Jim Shooter needs now. Marvel is still the king right now, but they're falling off as far as quality. And Jim Shooter maintained good quality and continuity with comic books. In an Avengers book, if Thor wasn't there, you knew what Thor was doing in his own book because it mentioned it. Books don't do it no more. There's no continuity.
I love that though.
Denny
I love
O'Neill
that about
also.
books. Go ahead.
Denny O'Neill also got it to the point where basically he was driving to get so that writers and artists would get a living wage. And what amazed me was how he appealed to how back in the day somebody could work on a small comic in the 1940s and be able to feed a family of 4 and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then as a finance guy, I went back and I'm like, that's absolute BS. He was selling this. We need to go back to the way things were in the good old days. But then he was doing this really progressive perspective. But instead of saying, we're going to do this revolution, we're overturning the tables and we're going to do this whole new thing. He's like, no, this isn't a whole new thing. This is what your grandparents used to do. Let's go back to the way our grandparents used to do it with benefits and all these other things. When, of course, those didn't exist. But they didn't know that. He knew it didn't exist, but he just pretended like what this radical thing he was trying to do in terms of improving the quality had already been there, but we just forgot about it in some ancient time before. And that's how they got the wages that they had, that they still have right now. Like if Denny O'Neill hadn't been around, they would make peanuts.
That's an interesting piece of history I did not know.
I will say this though about the Jim Shooter thing. I still think back to what Purchase said about was DiDio, how DiDio, while I don't agree with Purchase that he'll be years down the line fondly remembered as Shooter for what he actually did that we weren't aware of. But let's be honest though, DiDio did make sure that the editorials were talking to each other. The stuff like what happened with bisexual Tim Drake happening at the same time they were going to push bisexual John Kent. I don't think that would have happened under his watch. And I think the fact that you had other creators more keeping things afloat with each other, I think happened under the DiDio thing. You got to give him props for that. These days, they're just like, the left doesn't know what the right hand is telling them.
Right. From what I heard of DiDio, he was great at his job. He just hated things like Dick Grayson. He didn't want Batman
Wally West, Kyle Rayner.
Right.
Yeah, although if you believe Ethan, it was his idea to get rid of Wally, not DiDio's.
Oh God. Nope. And that's where we're wrapping up.
Yep. I figured we had that one.
Yeah, we don't even want to go down that aisle.
Yeah. Long story short, everyone
right
just
now,
wants good comics. That's what it is.
I guess we should do like a show of hands. Do people think that the Batman content is doing damage to DC? Like, oh God, I'm hijacking.
Yes and no.
Financially, it's not. Creatively and quality-wise, it is. As far as you want more character stories, it is doing damage to them. So financially, no, it is making money. That's all they care about. But if you want more quality, more diversity, not just racial diversity, but more with your other characters, want more Flash, want more Wonder Woman, then yes, it is hurting your brand. So,
what about you, Max?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Kenneth. I think financially, because what happens when Batman goes away? You know, say people get tired of Batman and they become almost desensitized to it, and those are their biggest books, then there's nothing to back that up, even though there are great characters to promote. So I think creatively, I think DC needs to look at their characters and see who they really want to promote other than Batman. But financially, I mean, they seem to be doing okay as long as they are selling Batman. So I think so yeah, it's kind of a yes and no. It sucks that it's that way. You know, I wish I could give a definitive yes or no, but I think it's a little bit of both.
The funny thing is the profits they'll end up making from the Batman movie would be enough to run DC for the whole year. So I mean, at the end of the day, they're doing okay. It's just, I think as fans, we also have this point where we're like, we love Batman, but come on, we love this character too. We love this character too. Just give us more. And I think that's not a bad thing. Like, that only proves that if you are willing to take the chance on those characters, so are we, right? You know what I mean? So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank everyone so much for coming. Make sure you guys check out Max on his channel. It is in the description, and same with Comics and Finance. Dan, do you have a channel?
Yeah, I have a channel. It's Dan Tasmedia. It's literally the word I wrote next to my name right here.
Awesome. Email me your channel link. I don't think it's subscribed. I feel really bad now. Email it to me, and I'm going to put it in the description so everyone can see it too. So, yes, make sure you guys check them out. Robert, I will put yours in also. And
I have a Young Justice video, as I mentioned, coming out, and I'm also have a few other things that I plan on covering, such as the new Catwoman movie.
Oh, it's so good! I love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch it. I've been hearing lots of good
reviews. You will love it, I promise. It's so fresh and it's so neat, and it's something I expected to not like because it looked like anime, and I was like, this isn't going to be good. And then I was like, wow, this is the best movie they've ever made.
Animation's right now the center of my channel. So, and like I'm doing comics and other stuff, but right now my focus is animations, which is good because I'm gonna be like, part of my plan is to cover the DC movies and also anime. So
nice.
And I wanted to mention too, I'll put it in the description here after the stream, but Max and Reggie had a really good conversation about the stuff going on at DC right now. And it was one of the more balanced takes that I've seen in a while, because you either get everything is perfect or, oh my God, they're going to die. So I wanted to make sure that I put that in there because it feels like somebody with an IQ above room temperature. And it was refreshing. Gary, thank you so much. We need to make good Superman game for Angry Joe. Okay.
YouTuber, that's a YouTuber known for loving Superman. That's what he's talking about.
We do need a new Superman game, but it would be very hard. It would
Ben
be.
and G asked me what's my site. Oh, just the link will be in the description, Ben. So yeah, I don't have a website. I just have a YouTube channel.
Awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya. Have a blessed one.
Bye.